into welfare of the people. Let me give you a typical example. And when we were in school, this was a classic example where in the past, the Soviet Union, or let me say Russia, had been doing well. They had been experiencing economic growth, only for the world to realize that most of their productions had to do with weapons, bombs, and guns, which did not really impact very well on the citizens of Russia. And that is a classic example, but it can be applied to most economies, especially for those of us in Africa, because we have a lot of things that thwart our progress, or that thwart the likely impact of our growth on the people. And one obvious example is how outliers deceive us. So you may find, forgive me if you may not want it this way, but for want of a better example, you may have the likes of Ibrahim Mahama, Kwame Despite, Yosiu, and let me add you yourself and myself. Maybe we are too rich. And so when you calculate our incomes, that alone could point to something meaningful. It could easily deceive you that everybody is doing well. So we have specific individuals setting up businesses and benefiting from the economy.
Yeah.
And you can easily be deceived that Ghana is doing well, but so many of the people are struggling down there. And so sometimes the way production is calculated or captured by the GDP calculation and some other factors could point to economic growth, but that might not mean that it is really impacting well on the people. And specifically in our case, you realize that when Ghana Statistical Service brings the inflation figures and the likes, you realize that sometimes domestic production suffers. In their recent release, you realize that even imported goods were doing better than locally manufactured goods. And let me tell you that most of the people, especially those in the rural communities, they are very much likely to depend on domestically produced goods. So you wouldn't go to your grandmother's village and realize that they are using imported drugs, imported stuff, even food. You will not see them doing a lot of canned foods like sardines. Sometimes on Christmas or during Easter, people have the opportunity of tasting sardine and the mackerels we don't even want. We want the organic ones. They think that it's a kind of luxury. So when we see that these things are happening, the very people who must begin to think about are those in the suburban and those in the rural areas. It impacts them a lot. And for those communities, even within the cities, like the like the Zongos and some those that are the suburbs that are less developed, you realize that they suffer the more because they are likely to depend on local goods, because there is this general theory that the more people get richer, the more, especially for those of us in Africa, the more they develop strong appetite for imported products.
So, Doc, are we saying that the numbers, look good nationally, but the lived experiences are different? Is that what we are saying?
Exactly. That could be accurate. So depending on what we are doing at a specific point in time. So let me give you a classic example. The fact that you are constructing roads as a people, you are constructing gutters, you are constructing sea defense walls, you are constructing harbors, all these things, improving on infrastructure. All these things for that specific period, accounting period, could point to economic growth. But ask yourself, people say, that is not to downplay the effect of that in the future, but at that particular time, people would ask, do we eat roads? Do we eat harbors? And it is because they feel that at that material moment in time, they are not experiencing that thing. But it is good because it impacts on the economy in the future. But what I'm trying to say is that in that specific year, if you are doing the accounting, if you are doing your calculations, you realize that we could be experiencing higher production because we produce some of these things. For example, if we set up plants to manufacture raw materials, agricultural raw materials or technology, intermediate technology, it is likely that production will go up. Once production is going up, it is likely that will be captured by the GDP. But my point is that at that specific point in time, though GDP might be seen to be going up, it does not necessarily mean that the welfare of the people has improved. But then in the near future, if that is well utilized, then of course that will begin to translate into proper welfare for the people.
I see, Doc. Let's continue to try to understand exactly what the report is saying, and I want to understand the reality a bit more. Now, when we say food secure, I want to know, does food secure in national statistics sometimes hide what people are actually going through in their homes?
Yes. So, talking about food security, the one major thing that must come to mind is buffers and storage. Because the reality is that, let me give you a typical example. Then I will seem to be deviating, but I'm carefully doing this so that I wouldn't deviate.
All right.
If you look at the issue in Iran, we said that we had 5 weeks cover, petroleum product cover. Good. Now, because of that, we do not feel the impact as much as we would have done. In the same way, if we have strong buffers, if we have strong storage facilities, and we are piling up food and agricultural products, after the bumper harvest, we are able to ensure smooth supply and smooth price levels all year long. But if we do not build strong buffers and we rely more also on natural factors, it means that at a certain point in time, we may be seen to be doing fine, but for most part of the year, we will not be secure in terms of food, because when the season is dry, when we are not having much rains, when we are not experiencing bumper harvest, it means that people will suffer to get something to eat, especially those that are on the lower income bracket, who are not seriously into imported products, because they would want cassava, yam, kontomire, mention any local garden eggs, the normal ones we know. And now I tell you, even the price of ginger can scare a woman from the market. Ginger is very, very
expensive. Yes.
Yes, and some few things you wouldn't even bother, you wouldn't imagine would have that surge in price. So it means that those things we produce locally are not doing well, and it is likely we are not paying attention to domestic production, or probably we are not doing enough to boost local agriculture. But this is it. If we do not ensure enough production and proper storage facilities, and for that matter, build strong buffers, we cannot be secure in terms of food. What we see will continue to exist.
I see. But why exactly do national averages often fail to, reflect the lived experiences of people? Why does that happen?
If I heard you right, you are asking how come our figures do not capture the practical or the reality on the ground.
Reality on the ground, exactly. Why does that happen?
Yes. You see, so let me be honest with you. When we are doing research, and the figures you see, the methodology is similar to most of the research works we do, even within the various universities and the likes. And you realize that in most cases you may have to sample, either randomly or purposely. I am sure in our case it's quite purposive, because even look at even the way we calculate inflation. We are quite specific on the with the goods and services within the baskets. We are going straight for, let's say, the things we in our views we think that Ghanaians use much, and so it's not as if you are capturing every aspect of what you are calculating for. You control for some variables. Sometimes you have to hold something factors constant and all of that. So it is not likely the figures will capture everything.
Okay.
So depending on what is doing well and what is not doing well, what is properly given the right weight, because even within the inflation basket, giving higher weight than others. So let me give you a typical example. So if we feel as Ghanaians that people eat rice more, then we are likely to give rice higher weight in the calculation of inflation or any other thing.
Okay.
So because we believe that people eat more. So at a specific point, if people decide to switch to Gary, then we'll be deceiving ourselves, because even though rice is having a higher weight, probably than Gary.
Mm.
You realize that because of some economic factors and probably the dynamics in pricing regarding rice, people have switched to, let's say, Gary, which we not place much value on because hitherto people had not been consuming that much. So then the figures will not be very, very, very representative of the reality on the ground. So yes, we are humans. We try as much as possible to have some figures out, but that figure may not capture the precise reality on the ground at specific times, and that is how come even from time to time we have to rebase the year, and from time to time we also have to vary the products and services, the goods and services in the basket to make sure that it is reflecting on the reality as time moves on. And
Mm.
so that is what it is. And sometimes too, I'm not saying that is always the case, but sometimes too, it depends on what um, the leaders are interested in. Because in any case, let's be frank with ourselves. These people, those in charge
Mm.
of these figures, I don't want to mention specific institutions for people to
Institution.
take
Right.
me to the wrong side,
Okay.
but people in charge of institutions and organizations coming out with these figures, most of them, for those are being done by the public sector. They were appointed by
By
the
the
leaders of
government.
this
Yeah.
nation and everywhere
Yeah.
else. So
Mm.
sometimes it depends on what they think should be out, and
Uh,
then it will be out. But I must be
But I
honest.
so
For,
so
as
I
for Ghana, for some time now, I think that our figures, in my view, have integrity.
okay. All right. Because I was going to ask you whether you're questioning the integrity of some of the numbers. And yes, but
Well,
okay,
there are specific times in our history I had
we've
been
questioned them.
suspicious, but I think that from
Mm.
the time of the previous government, let me be specific, from NPP's time under Nana Akufo-Addo,
Mm.
the government statistician had been one of the best of his appointees, in my view. He was
Mm.
so very good and very frank with the figures. Whether in his time inflation was over 50, he did it. He put it out. I think he was honest and
Mm.
he was fair with Ghanaians.
Right.
And for now, I do not have any reason to doubt what we are seeing
Dr.
now. But
Alassane as
except
well.
that, like I said,
Mm.
in your calculations, sometimes things happen. Let me give you another classic example. In my PhD, there were figures I sampled.
Mm.
There were institutions or variables I sampled, and I sent it to the professor. The professor said, that is, I made a mistake. I said, I didn't make a mistake. He said, I made a mistake. And I said, why is he saying that? He said, no, I should look at 2020 figures
Mm.
because it hasn't followed the trend and it's strange. And I said, well, that is what happened in Ghana because 2020 was COVID-19.
Mm.
And so even in terms of growth, we were close to the negatives and some of the figures. So we had to just um, accept it as an outlier
Mm.
and deal with specific months within that year so that we can have a more representative figure. So sometimes in your research work, and let me say, this what they do is similar to normal research work because they have agents across the country who gather figures and facts about some of these things and compute that. So I think that they are doing their best, but from time to time we must have a way of capturing the reality on the ground. If there's a need for us to vary some variables, we do that. If we have to cut off some outliers that might give us deceptive figures or deceptive outcomes, then
We
we
do that
we,
as
we
well.
put some control measures in place.
Mm. All right, Doc. Let's move on and look at exactly what this means for households. When we say that households are coping, what exactly it means. Now, the report mentions that households are reducing portion sizes. Some of them are switching to cheaper food, borrowing, and even selling their assets to be able to feed. In practical terms, what happens to a family when they start living like that?
Yes, so when people do that, it has adverse effect on their health because
Mm.
if you are unable to eat a balanced diet because of financial constraints, then you have to rely on, say, I'm not saying Gary is not good, but the Gary must be eaten in a way that will ensure that you are balancing your diet. So if you eat only Gary and let's say sugar, soakings, because even when we were in the boarding schools, we used to put in milk and the like. But if you just have to put sugar in Gary and drink it because for breakfast, because of financial issues, then if you do that for a long time, you may have issues with your eyes. You may have issues with your health in general. And some even cannot afford fish, meaning that they are likely to depend more on carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates, yeah.
I mean, it's gari cassava without any proper. And so, I mean, it has adverse effects on the individuals we are talking about here, and that ultimately affects our human capital. Because if you are a CEO or you are the boss of, let's say, a government institution, and your people are always asking for sick leave, they are always writing letters. I'm at the hospital. Obviously, it affects our man hour, the number of man hours we have as a nation, and that can affect ultimately productivity, because the time people would have to spend on working, they have to use to work. They would use that time at the hospital, or probably in at the pharmacy, or sleeping because they are not feeling well. And you see, sometimes there are people who don't have any disease in their system, but they are not feeling well. And I used just recently, I used that strategy. Our head pastor said that we're going to have a 3-day fasting period, except those who are sick. And I said, well, some of us are not sick, but we are not too well too. So how do we go about it? Yeah, so people may not be sick, but you realize that they are not just well.
Yeah.
And it's because they are not eating well. And so they work small, they are tired. The least thing they do, they are tired. Even walking to work, after walking and getting to the office, they can't do anything else because they are already exhausted. So it has serious issues on our productivity. And also, it's very funny. In economics, we say that if you want to create jobs, sometimes you can even let people fetch water onto the road and pay them. It can trigger economic activities. It sounds funny, but that is a reality. You just say that, don't do anything. When you wake up in the morning, just go and fetch water, pour it on the road. I will pay all of you. And this is how it works. Maybe you go to your village, you realize that the place is drowsy, the place is just down. People are selling, they are not buying. You see coconut, cassava, they are not buying. Okay, so you just maybe take something. The government, then you are assuming the role of the government, so you just take some money from the Bank of Ghana. Say, we want to go and empower the people at the village. You go there. You wouldn't probably know how to pump the money into the system for you to trigger economic activity. So you tell them that, okay, we are going to conduct interviews, shortlist people and all of that, and give jobs to about 30 people. What are they going to do? Well, the road looks too hot in the afternoon. Just fetch water and put it on the road.
Right.
They do that, then you pay everybody, let's say, 30 cedis a day. When they get the money, they will go and buy the coconut, buy this and the likes. And those people will have more money. They will also start producing something more. Maybe they will go to the next busy marketplace to get more stuff, bring it to the town again. They sell it, and then money will start circulating. Economic activity will start booming like we do during Christmas. So sometimes when people are hungry, when people are not consuming, it also shows that the economy is not doing so well. The economy is not booming. And so the more people are eating well, the more people are buying, consumption thrives, and production is triggered. And that boosts economic activities in general, and the economy grows. And it grows in a way that impacts on the people, because growth is coming from the households as units in the economy. Because anytime we economists fear when governments rather spend excessively, because we feel that the money is coming from nowhere and is being injected into the economy. But when it is done properly through the households, or what is triggering economic activity is coming from the households, then we believe that it will translate into the pockets of the people, because it is coming from the right source, and that is what we say it's organic. It's organic because it's starting from the household, the basic unit within the economy.
All right.
And so it's always good to trigger consumption, because it has positive effects on production levels.
Doc, so you mentioned productivity. You mentioned so basically that has got to do with human capital. You also talked about the broader economy, the impact on the broader economy, and also the health of the people and all of that. We'll talk about it one after the other. But just before that, how serious is it generally when families have to cut back on the quality and the quantity of food that they eat? How serious is it?
Yes. So generally, when you see we have basic needs in life. You remember Maslow's hierarchy, and food and shelter cannot be ruled out. So if people find it difficult to eat, it tells you that they are facing abject poverty, and so it's a clear indication that they are drowning in poverty, and we must it should inform the kind of policies to formulate. And another thing is this: it creates apathy within the system, and even social biases, because then those who think that they are not eating because the system has not been helpful to them, they are likely to pour their anger on those they feel are doing well because the state has been lenient or has been favoring them.
Yeah.
So you realize that sometimes some thieves can be very polite and fair. To an extent that if you are walking on the street as an ordinary person, your phone can fall down. An armed robber can take it, call you and give the phone to you because it is your phone. The same person who called you that your phone has dropped in the night can pick a gun and go and rob someone in his house because he thinks that that person has much in excess. He has in excess, and that is not supposed to be the situation. So he doesn't feel guilty robbing that person. I'm not saying this to justify theft or robbery. It's just a scenario I'm trying to create.
Okay.
That when people feel that they are not even having food to eat because the system has not been fair, it can breed social biases. And another thing is that it can bring apathy. Even during elections, they wouldn't vote because the reality is that they feel that they have been cut off. Ordinary food they can't find to eat. So why should they even waste time to vote? Especially when it's persistent. Every government comes and they're still going hungry, then they feel like, well, the country is for some people. I don't know whether you've ever heard that before. That we came to accompany some people in this world. And so for those people, the world is for them. As far as we are backbenchers. So when it happens like that, I mean, nothing would you say to help them get them carried along in our national discourse.
But Doc, do you think we are underestimating how common this is becoming?
Yes, I think so. And one day we will realize that we are underestimating it. When people, out of hunger, take arms and they start rioting, that is when our policymakers and leaders realize that we should have acted swiftly. So I think that we need to pay attention, especially the youth, because they have the energy.
That's true.
Even in their hunger, they still have some energy left to do some of the things they can really do. So we really need to pay attention to them. And it's almost as if most of the jobs have been hijacked by the older generation. And it is understandable because they came first. Probably, if I want to count myself in, we came first. So those behind us are struggling to find meaningful work to do. And if they forever go hungry, one day, they can easily be on the street.
But okay, even
what we don't expect.
Right. Even the streets are maybe quite distant a bit. Today we see people pick up phones and call you and say they've sent you money and you have to do some transactions and all of these things. I think those ones are even more relatable now. What do you think?
Yes, you are right, and it's part of the social vices, isn't it?
Yeah.
Except that they are stealing, but they are using digital means, technology to do that.
Yeah.
Because why? They feel that the state has not been helpful to them. And honestly speaking, you see where I think that we are not fair to people in this nation. Not that I'm talking to a specific period, but I think from the time I have been growing as a citizen of Ghana, I realized that we even by our laws, we've not been fair to people. Why do I say that? Look, our laws were bold enough to say that if you attempt suicide, that is an offense. You yourself, if you think that you cannot have food to eat, and so you want to take your own life, we will punish you for trying to take your own life. But ask yourself, would the state, if you decide to live, would the state give you food to eat? Elsewhere, if you are unemployed, you are likely to attract unemployment benefit. Except that you have to declare that you are in a situation of distress. Then the state can give you something to live on. If they make suicide an offense, it's understandable. But you are not helping your needy. And you say that if they cannot feed, and they do all that they can. They still cannot get food to eat, and so they decide to give up. You punish them for trying to die when no one has asked them to die. Now, let's put that aside. You realize that people give birth to all sorts of children, sometimes with serious diseases, sicknesses, and they struggle to take care of them because these children will not allow them to go to work. And they find it difficult to get money to feed these kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see some of them, the old ones standing by the roadside begging for alms. We drive. We all agree. We drive in our posh cars. We see them by the roadside. We go.
Yeah.
These same people, if they say that, well, my child is disturbing me, I cannot feed this child, then because of this child, I cannot go to work, and I'm not having any meaningful income to take care of myself and the baby. So I want to kill the baby. If you attempt that, we will arrest you and punish you severely, and I support the state for that. But what I think is unfair on the part of the state is that if that is the case, then help people to be able to take care of such babies.
Yeah, there needs to be some social protection.
Yeah, you see, so I have family in UK. I have an auntie in UK whose kids are autistic. The state provides for her and the kids. It's understandable. So if the state does that for you and you decide to hurt the child, then the state can swiftly come in and punish you. But in our case, we want to behave like that. Meanwhile, what they do, we have refused to do. We are so unfair to one another as a people. Look, even our disabled people, how much are we giving them? You find out. The disabled support, the support we give them, how much do we give them? So I think that we are just unfair to one another. And it's time we started thinking about these things, how we can make food accessible, and whether we are going to even ensure that more programs like the LEAP, the school feeding program, and other social interventions, or if there's a way we can make food available in a way to people who really need them. I think it's our responsibility to do that as a people, and the government must pick that up.
All right. Okay, Doc, please hold on for me. Let me just announce the lines in case anybody wants to join the conversation. Please, if you just tune in, this is Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Nitrebi Hammond. And this morning, we're talking about the report by the Ghana Statistical Service telling us that several people are in food stress, in this country. And what that means is that many of them are unable to actually feed regularly as they should. And so what happens as a result is also that they have to cope, and some people are selling their assets to be able to feed. Some people are cutting down on the quality and the quantity of food that they are eating and all of that. And that is 1 in 3 households, which is quite alarming. And we need to have conversations on that. And that's what we're talking about this morning. My guest is Dr. Evans Nunu, and he's an economist, and he's helping us have this conversation. If you want to join, feel free. Send us your messages. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH. And on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Please feel free to drop a comment under the live stream. I'll read them for you. Also, you can send us a WhatsApp on 0544-321019, 0544-321019. You can also call me on 030-3956-641, 030-3956-641, and I'll give you the opportunity to ask your questions or make your comments this morning. Feel free to get in touch with us. If you don't understand anything as well, feel free to call us, and we'll give you room to be able to ask your questions this morning. All right, Doc, let's zoom out a bit and link to the economy. So how does what is happening in individual households eventually affect the wider economy? Now, I know we've spoken about how it is the social vices and all of those things, but are there other things that you can talk about?
Yes, you mentioned something that we all should be interested in. You said that people sometimes have to sell their assets to feed. That particular statement you made is very prominent. You see, and that is one of the major adverse effects it has on the economy. If you have a shop, if you have a business, and you are always struggling to eat, the likelihood is that you will spend your capital. So you realize that gradually the business will be going down. Because you are eating from your capital. Because you see, when food is scarce, commonsensically tells you that it's also expensive. Because anywhere there is scarcity, prices would surge. So if locally, on the local front, we are experiencing scarcity, it means that people have to spend more. Like we mentioned the ginger. And ginger, even Ghana Fiscal Service has captured it as one of the most expensive items on our market. And I have been buying ginger. I know how expensive it is. So if it's scarce, it's valuable, it's expensive. That means that people would have to sell their assets, like you mentioned. Yeah. So if you have something, you have investment, if you have savings that you could easily use to run a business, you are likely to spend that on food. And if that goes on for a long time, realize that it will reduce the level of economic activities in the system. It will have effect on employment, because it is when I have excess money that I use to create jobs or expand my business and employ more. And the government tries to employ, but the government can't employ all the teeming youth. So we need the private sector to thrive and employ. But if the private sector would have to spend the money, the profit they are making on food, how much are they going to spend on starting up businesses, expanding their existing businesses, and employing more people? So that would have effect on job creation, business creation, and in fact, it will slow down the economy. The economy will dry. It will dry.
I see. So, Doc, so will you describe this as a silent economic risk?
Yes, sure. I agree with you 100%. Because if people have to eat, because if they don't eat, they die. So if people have to sell their cars, sell their television, even the products in their homes to eat, they will do that, because it is so basic. It is so basic. Food and water, so basic. So if food is getting more and more expensive, means that people will spend a lot on food, and even saving behavior would be affected. Because if I even don't have much to eat, how then do I save? So realize that people start disinvesting. People will have to disinvest to feed their households. Others would just not save because they feel that they don't have much to eat. And I tell you, it is not just about refusing to save. It is also about borrowing. Sometimes you pick people's pay slips, and it is flooded with loans. It's flooded with loans. Just recently, I had a similar situation where I had to convince a lady not to take her own life because she owed the people were coming after her, and when they come, they disgrace her in the neighborhood. So I had to take time to talk to her, give her assurance about the future.
Right.
But why should that happen? See, why should that happen? If and it's not as if she borrowed to do anything. According to her, she attempted some businesses, but unfortunately, she wasn't having that, so she started eating from the business before she realized the money was gone. And probably she is 1 in a million. It happens always. Do you think that those people who, when you say that I want to send you Momo, they say, hold on, I'll give you a different number. And sometimes even the name on it is a female's name. It's not as if they are intentionally doing that, but they have borrowed and they are not getting money to pay. So there are several phone chips. If you send money onto it, you've killed the person. The money is gone. So, these are things we really need to pay attention to. It means that people are really struggling. And that must not be the case.
All right. Doc, now the report also highlights, I know that there are effects on children and their future and all of these things. If we want to go into all of that, maybe we will not leave here this morning. So let's move on to the regional disparity. Now, the report highlights that regions like, I think, Northeast, Northern, Upper East, and Upper West are more affected. Why do these regional disparities still exist?
So it reinforces my earlier point that those who depend on their local economy are likely to be affected the more, and we are talking about those that are underdeveloped. So Accra is likely to depend more on foreign products and canned foods. You go to so many homes in Accra, I'm sure milk. In your own home, I'm sure every day you see milk. In my own home, milk is nothing. But some of these rural, those in how do I say it? I don't want to use rural, but those that are not urban, well developed. To even have side, milk is a big deal. You'll be surprised that even a bottle of Coke may have to be shared by about 5 children. It's only maybe on Christmas Sunday that you are likely to get a full bottle of Coke as a kid. And so those areas that are not well developed are likely to depend on the local economy. And what we are talking about, if you look at the Ghana Statistical figures, service figures, you realize that locally manufactured products, including agricultural products, are not being as better as their foreign counterparts. And so any economy, local economy or regional economy, that depends more on local goods would be hit the more. And I'm sure those areas, if you go down there, you realize that most of them depend on local products as compared to Ashanti region, Cape Coast, Greater Accra, and the likes. So I wouldn't be surprised that Greater Accra wouldn't be hit that much. Kumasi, Ashanti region wouldn't be hit that much. Though Ashanti region we are quite conservative, and so they still do a lot of organic stuff. I mean, PCA and the likes. But of course, they are quite urban, and they are likely to have more imports in the system and have stronger taste for imported products. So, in my view, I mean, the dynamics always change. But for now, I think that what is happening, rural communities will be affected more, and regions that are underdeveloped, in my view, will be hit the more because of what I have already talked about.
But I think it also goes beyond that. I think maybe we can. One of the things could be income levels in those areas as well. Do you agree with that, Doc?
Yes, 100%. So you see, those are underdeveloped. So if you see Accra and Kumasi, we have a lot of services. So you realize that the service sector thrives more in Kumasi, Accra, and the major regions because you have a lot of teachers, a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, a lot of nurses, a lot of, all sort of services around. And that also means that income levels are higher. Because even the last figures they brought, you realize that the service sector experienced more inflation. But that was supposed to affect the urban areas more. But if you go to those areas, they have less money in circulation. What I mean is that they depend more on natural stuff, organic stuff. And so, I mean, their system is like that. If it is when transportation is affecting some specific sectors that sometimes they are spared, especially when those sectors are not thriving there. For example, the service sector is less there. So if, for example, fuel prices are triggering higher inflation in the service sector, you realize that even when they compute all the regions, they could have a lower inflation because services do not thrive much there. But if it has to do with food and agriculture, they will be affected because they also depend on that. As though their economy will not have much money in circulation, but in their own small way, they will be affected because they depend more on organic products. I mean, subsistence farming, and they do not do better. They also trade. So, of course, all those things will play a role.
Right.
So, for me, I think that what we are talking about, it affects those in the rural communities the more. Food stress is a major issue for those in the rural communities. And it also increases the level of poverty there. It impoverishes them.
All right, Doc. So maybe just before we go, do you think that our current social protection systems here are reaching the people who need them the most?
I don't think it's protective enough. I do not think so. We have attempted to do something, but it looks like it is only to prove that we are doing something. I do not think that it has any meaningful impact on the people, because if you look at the LEAP program, you realize that the impact is always not as much as one would anticipate. And the school feeding program itself, there were times we had shortages in the system. They were not being paid. Those who were in charge were not being paid. And there were even issues about nutritional issues like meat, fish, and all of that. So I think it's not even properly being handled. And I'm sure it's because of financial constraints. So yes, these are good initiatives. These are positive initiatives. But I think that they are only there to prove that we think about the people and want to do something, but it is not at the level we can all put our hands together and say that let's clap for our policymakers. So I think that we need to pay attention to some of these social interventions and see if there is any.
Oops, unfortunately, we lost Doctor there. Our time is also up. I wish we could get him back to make his final comment. Let me see if I'm able to get him back on the line. But Doc has been making very important points across the various aspects of the conversation we've had this morning. We are seeing that a lot of things are actually happening that many of us do not know about. Most of us think that Accra is Ghana, but Ghana is not Accra. You know, there are people that are suffering, people that are going through all kinds of things. And so when we look at national data, sometimes we think that things are looking good. But if you go deep down, you see that some people are actually struggling a lot. And I was just asking Doctor about the social protection, about the social protections that we have in this country, and whether that's actually enough for us. I want him to make his final comments and probably maybe just advise government, and then we can wrap up this morning. But you are free to also join the conversation. Feel free and WhatsApp me now if you have any comments to make. 0544-321019, 0544-321019, or you can also call me on that number, or 030-3956-641, 030-3956-641, and then I give you the opportunity to ask your questions. Doc will give us his final thoughts, and then we can wrap up this morning. But you can also drop a comment under our live stream. We are on Facebook at ZFMGH and on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Drop a comment and I'll read them for you, Doc. So I think you made your point about the social protection. Good to have you back. Maybe finally, if you were advising government today, maybe what would be your top 3 immediate interventions that you think governments can put in place? What will be the role of businesses and also even all of us as individuals?
Yeah, so in terms of the government, the first thing is to check out the regions that are most hit, those that are experiencing the wrath of this, and see if storage facilities could be set up there, because it's also likely that they are farming regions that farming thrives. So we have to give them storage facilities and to ensure that we build enough buffers so that in situations like this, we can release food items to them. And that if it's also possible that specifically the government can give subsidies to certain very needy people in the various rural communities in a carefully managed manner so that people don't take advantage of it. Another thing is we have always maintained that we need to pay strong attention to agriculture in general, because that is what gives us the food we eat and everything else. So we need to pay attention to that. In terms of businesses, I would advise that those who have the capital, those who have the money, idle funds, should look at investing in the distribution channels and also going into agriculture, because we still have a lot of things to do there. If you have the money and you just invest in agriculture, I'm sure the profits, you are likely to get the right profit. In terms of the social interventions in the system, I would like the government to give them a better attention, to inject more money into them so that they will have better impact than we have seen in the past.
Okay. Right, Doc, thank you very much for your time. Really, really grateful that you joined me this morning and sharing your thoughts with us. We're really grateful.
Thanks for the privilege.
All right, please do enjoy the rest of your day. All right, so that was Dr. Evans Nunu, and he is an economist. He joined me this morning. We've been talking about food stress in Ghana and what the situation really looks like. And we've seen that the ripple effect is there. It affects everybody. It affects productivity. It in turn affects the economy generally. It affects you and myself as well, because we are not safe. If people are struggling to be able to feed, then it means that they can even take up arms and so there are so many things that come in there. So let's find a way to work around these things. It's called on government to actually introduce some social protection. I don't know whether we can do some food support for certain people, and I I want to commend one of these entrepreneurs who actually started a food bank thing. I think it was a very good initiative. I don't know whether it's still running, but that's a very good initiative. The rich, the wealthy in our societies can come together and put together some of these things, and I believe strongly that it will help a lot of people. So that will be all for Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM today. We are back again tomorrow for some more interesting conversations. Until then, please keep listening to Z101.9 FM. My name is Nitra B. Hammond. Up next is The Brighter Side with Jeremy Okori Amaku. Please stay tuned. I'll see you tomorrow.